When I realized that my boss, who isn't interested in women, could hear my thoughts, I decided to mentally confess my love to him every day with explicit fantasies, hoping to get fired with a severance package. When my boss sipped his tea, I thought that drop of water at the corner of his lips looked so tempting. I want to kiss it away. When he rested his hand against his face, I imagined those long fingers. I want to sit on them. When he wore gray slacks, I fantasized about the nice length that it could reach my cervix. I even wore a plunging V-neck to tempt him. He frowned and stepped closer. I thought I'd finally get dismissed. Instead, he pinned me against the desk, his voice dangerously low. That's not how you tempt someone here. Let me teach you. Click asterisk. The door to the CEO's office on the first floor burst open. A woman in a bright red dress stumbled out, covering her tear-streaked face. Her 10-centimeter heels clicked sharply against the floor. Her carefully styled curls now disheveled and clinging to her wet cheeks. The commotion sent ripples through the previously quiet office. My heart jumped as I watched the woman return to her nearby desk. Surprised, I asked, "Nancy, didn't you just go to present your report?" She didn't answer. She simply began packing her belongings in silence. Within moments, she left carrying a cardboard box, tears streaming down her face. That afternoon, rumors about Nancy's termination spread throughout Horizon Corporation like wildfire. Emma from the design department whispered in my ear. I heard from inside sources that Nancy tried to tempt Director Blake. He was furious on the spot, saying Horizon didn't need employees with such poor conduct. He called HR immediately and had her fired right then and there. Seriously. A month ago, Quarter sent us a new general manager. Our sales department had 3 representatives. One went on maternity leave. Another just got fired for trying to tempt the new GM. That left only me, one person doing 3 people's work. I was forcibly promoted to star work, of course, while an intern position remained unfilled. The new director arrived and started making aggressive changes. He could shoot off his grand ideas all he wanted, but I was the one left scrambling to put out the fires. After working non-stop for an entire month, I was completely exhausted and determined to resign. But just as I was about to hit send on my resignation email, clarity struck. Wait, I've been here for 6 whole years. Why should I slink away empty-handed? If I was leaving, I wanted my severance package first. While I was racking my brain trying to figure out how to get laid off, Blake Mitchell suddenly started acting strange. Like right now, I just stepped into the elevator. When a pair of dress shoes entered my field of vision, I slowly raised my gaze up. 187 centimeters. The man before me wore a tailored suit, his upright posture and perfect features approaching in sync with my pounding heartbeat. I flashed him a polite, professional smile while secretly hammering the door closed button. Watching the elevator doors begin to slide shut, I feigned disappointment at Blake, who was still several steps away. But suddenly he strode forward, pushing his hands between the closing doors. He stepped inside and stood beside me. "Morning, Director Blake." Running into me. "I'd say you're running late." I choked on my words and fell silent. In my mind, I grumbled, just my luck running into this plague first thing in the morning. "What's wrong? You look like you don't want to be alone with me." The comment struck me as odd. Noticing where his gaze had landed, I realized what he meant and feigned surprise. "Oh my, I was in such a hurry I accidentally hit the close button. With that look on your face like you've seen the plague, I was starting to think you didn't like your new director." Alarm bells rang in my head. I forced a laugh. "Director Blake, you're joking. I probably just stayed too late last night." "Not at my best. I worked until midnight. Of course, I looked terrible." The man beside me fell silent for a moment before speaking. "You don't need to push yourself so hard. There's always more work. Leave what you can't finish for me to handle." "Oh well, suddenly Blake the slave driver has a heart," I continued internally. Blake coughed abruptly, as if choking on something. Easy for him to say. In the end, I'm still the one doing it. If he doesn't hire someone soon, I'm gonna die from overwork. He added quietly, "We're already hiring. Just bear with it a little longer." My spirits lifted. Perfect. Once the new person arrives, I'll dump everything on them and slack off until Blake fires me. My severance is practically in hand. A shadow suddenly fell over me. The scent of expensive cologne mixed with cedarwood filled my nostrils as he leaned close. I froze instantly. Slowly turning my head, I found Blake bent toward my ear, looking into my eyes with a slight smile. Employee from Quality Assurance quit recently. Spent months looking for work without success. He paused. The job market is really brutal right now, wouldn't you say, Samuel? Like he'd struck a nerve. His seemingly random comment caught me completely off guard. Before I could respond, the elevator dinged open and Blake strode out with long steps. I suppressed the inexplicable strangeness I felt. My heart is unsettled. Or like this moment, Blake was berating someone in a meeting without using a single curse word. I suddenly remembered a video I'd watched yesterday. When people speak loudly, their sphincter opens and closes with the rhythm. Thinking of this, I barely contained my laughter. When I looked up, Blake's expression had turned extremely peculiar. His searching gaze swept the room before landing squarely on my face. Sensing something was wrong, my colleagues followed his stare toward me. I held my breath thinking, oh no, wait, what did I do? Why is he suddenly staring at me? Can he somehow hear me insulting him telepathically? His cold voice cut through the air, tinged with barely restrained anger. Samuel, what was I just saying? My brain short-circuited as I frantically searched my memory, but all I could recall was that video. What was this scumbag boss saying just now? When people speak loudly there, I think it was about not meeting this year's annual targets. This year's annual targets weren't met, so I ventured cautiously. He pressed on. What? Which targets? Which targets? When people speak loudly, their sphincter moves with the rhythm. A soft snort escaped his throat. Blake dropped a single line. Samuel, come to my office. Everyone else dismissed. I was then subjected to another round of his pointed criticism. He claimed it was to help me work more efficiently and moved my desk right next to the CEO's office. Wasn't this exactly like a teacher monitoring a troublesome elementary school student at lunch? Emma bit into a chicken leg and asked through a full mouth, why did he suddenly start targeting you? Isn't he afraid you'll quit? Getting no response, she waved her hand in front of my face. What's wrong? Did he scold you, stupid? I think the boss can read minds. I think you've lost yours. I was dead serious. I'm not kidding. I told Emma everything that had happened over the past few days. She burst into laughter. You were thinking such dirty thoughts. Ha ha ha. But, his expression was so dramatic at that moment, your theory actually makes sense. After this review, I suddenly remembered several small incidents. A few days ago, I complained about the office chairs being too hard and hurting my backside. The next day, the company brought in new chairs. After a meeting left me parched, I griped about the staff person being too lazy to buy water. That afternoon, the conference room fridge was stocked with drinks and yogurt and stayed that way. A client email about something quality control should handle had my name on it. After forwarding it to the appropriate person, I hit a wall. I mentally complained about that person dodging work. Moments later, I received a new email from Blake with a concise message. Please follow up on this matter. The recipient's name was prominently displayed. Emma concluded, from what you're telling me, that handsome, wealthy director Blake must be into you. I was silent for a long moment. You're such a hopeless romantic. He fulfills all my harmless wishes, except letting me quit. That's exactly Blake, the slave driver's manipulative strategy. With me as his perfect workhorse, he won't let me go easily. Then why hasn't my salary increased when I keep asking for a raise? Unless he can only hear your thoughts. I froze. Late that night, I lay in bed deep in thought. How could I possibly get myself fired? But suddenly, inspiration struck. He doesn't like women. Huh? Well, then let him witness the power of a devoted fanboy. The next morning, I walked into the office with the determination of a man marching into battle. If Director Blake could hear my thoughts, then I would make absolutely sure he regretted it. The moment I stepped out of the elevator and spotted his tall figure in the hallway, I straightened my back. Good morning, Director Blake. Outwardly, I was the picture of professionalism. Internally, Director Blake's eyelashes are unfair. Why does a grown man have eyelashes that look like they belong in a luxury mascara commercial? Blake's steps faltered. I nearly cheered. It worked. He could definitely hear me. At the morning meeting, he stood at the front explaining next quarter's strategy. His expression was calm. His voice was steady. I rested my chin on my hand. Wow. Look at him explaining charts. So capable. So handsome. If Horizon Corp. ever goes bankrupt, he could probably survive by becoming a model. The laser pointer snapped in half. The entire conference room fell silent. Blake stared at the broken pointer in his hand. Continue taking notes. Everyone immediately lowered their heads. I bit my lip to stop myself from laughing. This was incredible. For the first time in my life, I had found a natural predator for the terrifying Blake Mitchell. The rest of the day became my personal experiment. Whenever he walked past, those shoulders looked like they were designed by an expensive architect. Whenever he spoke, that voice could probably sell accounting software to kindergartners. Whenever he frowned, why is he even attractive when he's angry? This is workplace fraud. By lunchtime, Blake looked like a man fighting for his life. Emma eventually cornered me in the break room. Why does the director look like he's been through 3 divorces today? I innocently sipped my coffee. No idea. At exactly 2 o'clock, an email appeared in my inbox. Subject: CEO office. My heart leaped. Finally. After all this mental harassment, he was going to fire me. I practically skipped to the top floor. The door clicked shut behind me. Blake sat behind his desk, fingers pressed against his temple. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he slowly looked up. Samuel. His voice sounded exhausted. Yes, director? Do you ever think about work? I froze. Sometimes. His eyes narrowed. Name one thing you thought about today related to work. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out, because the only things I remembered thinking were Director Blake's jawline, Director Blake's shoulders, Director Blake's stupidly attractive face. Blake let out a long breath, the kind of breath people released before making life-changing decisions. Samuel. Yes. Starting tomorrow, you're assisting me directly. My eyes widened. What? No. That's not a question. This is retaliation. It's supervision. It's imprisonment. It's your promotion letter. A document slid across the desk. I grabbed it. My eyes immediately landed on the salary figure. I stopped breathing. The number was nearly double my current pay. Blake watched me silently. I looked at the salary, then at Blake, then back at the salary. My planned resignation suddenly looked much less appealing. My loyalty to Horizon Corporation began recovering at miraculous speed. Blake's mouth twitched. You were going to quit. It wasn't a question. I nearly jumped out of my skin. How did you? His gaze sharpened. I shut my mouth. Right. Mind reader. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. A slow smile appeared on Blake's face. For the first time since he arrived at Horizon, he looked genuinely pleased. Good. My instincts immediately screamed danger. What do you mean good? He leaned back in his chair. Because now I don't have to pretend anymore. The room suddenly became very quiet. My heartbeat stumbled. Blake met my gaze directly. Samuel. His voice was calm. Far too calm. For the record. Your thoughts are extremely distracting. I blinked. Once. Twice. Then my brain finally processed what he'd just said. And immediately crashed. Samuel's brain crashed so hard it nearly blue-screened. Excuse me? Blake calmly folded his hands on the desk. You heard me. No, I didn't. You did. I definitely didn't. A vein twitched near Blake's temple. For some reason, that made me feel slightly better. Then a horrifying possibility struck me. Wait, if he really could hear my thoughts, then he heard everything. Every stupid joke. Every complaint. Every insult. My soul immediately attempted to leave my body. Oh my God. He heard the one about his. Yes. I froze. Blake looked at me expressionlessly. My face slowly turned red. He heard it. He actually heard it. The room fell into dead silence. Then Blake quietly opened a drawer and handed me a glass of water. Drink. Why? You look like you're about to faint. I grabbed the glass with shaking hands. This couldn't be happening. Normal people weren't supposed to hear thoughts. This was illegal. Possibly supernatural. Definitely a violation of employee privacy. How long? I croaked. Blake stared at me. Since the first day I met you. The water immediately went down the wrong pipe. I nearly died. The first day? The first day. My memories flashed before my eyes. The first time I saw him. The first time I complained about his face being too handsome. The first time I compared him to a luxury handbag. The first time I wondered if his suit cost more than my annual salary. The first. I buried my face in my hands. I quit. No. I resign. Denied. You can't deny a resignation. Watch me. I stared at him in disbelief. Blake stared back. Somewhere along the way, the conversation had gone completely off the rails. Then another realization hit me. Wait. Blake raised an eyebrow. If you've known this whole time, a terrible suspicion formed. Then why did you move my desk next to your office? Blake was silent. Too silent. Dangerously silent. My eyes narrowed. You did that on purpose. No. You absolutely did. No. You wanted easier access to my thoughts. No. You're lying. For the first time all afternoon, Blake looked away. Aha. Caught. My jaw dropped. No way. His ears looked suspiciously red. No way. Samuel. Oh my God. Samuel. You actually like listening. Blake closed his eyes. The expression on his face resembled someone reconsidering every decision they'd ever made. Meanwhile, I was putting pieces together at record speed. The new chair. The drinks. The random favors. The raises I'd casually thought about. The times he somehow knew exactly what was bothering me. The way he always appeared whenever I was overwhelmed. The way he remembered every tiny complaint. The way he never actually got angry despite hearing enough nonsense from my brain to qualify as psychological warfare. A terrifying conclusion emerged. Director Blake. What? You've been spoiling me. The silence that followed was deafening. Blake slowly looked out the window. My mouth fell open. He didn't deny it. He didn't deny it. At that exact moment his phone rang. The caller ID flashed across the desk. His older brother. Blake answered immediately. Hello. A loud voice exploded from the speaker. Did you confess yet? The office froze. Blake froze. I froze. The caller continued. You've been stalking that employee for months. If you don't confess soon, I'll do it myself. Click. The call disconnected. Absolute silence. I slowly turned toward Blake. Blake slowly turned toward me. For the first time since becoming CEO, the legendary Blake Mitchell looked genuinely cornered. Then, very carefully, I thought, well, this is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to either of us. Blake closed his eyes. A second later, despite himself, he laughed. And somehow that was even more dangerous than when he was angry. The laughter lasted only a second. Unfortunately for Blake, it was enough. Because now I knew. The terrifying, ruthless CEO of Horizon Corp. The man who could reduce entire departments to tears with a single email. Had a crush on me. A ridiculous grin immediately started spreading across my face. Blake's expression darkened. Don't what? Whatever you're about to think. My grin widened. Too late. Director Blake likes me. Blake pinched the bridge of his nose. Director Blake has a crush. Samuel. On me. Samuel. A massive crush. His jaw tightened. I had never felt this much power in my entire life. For months I'd been suffering under his management. Now the tables had turned. For the first time I was the one with leverage. I leaned back in my chair. So? Blake's eyes narrowed. So? How long? Silence. Director Blake. More silence. Blake. A muscle twitched in his cheek. 8 months. I nearly fell out of my chair. 8 months. His expression suggested he regretted answering. I stared at him. That's insane. Is it? Yes. You spent 6 of those months mentally evaluating my appearance. I choked. Blake continued mercilessly. You compared my face to an expensive sculpture. I wanted to disappear. You described my voice as, stop, a luxury product. Please stop. For the first time ever, Blake looked amused. Actually amused. The sight was so shocking I forgot to be embarrassed. Then another horrifying realization hit me. Wait. What? You knew I liked you? Blake looked at me like I was stupid. Samuel. You are physically incapable of keeping a thought to yourself. Fair. Very fair. The problem was that my embarrassment lasted exactly 30 seconds. Then my survival instincts kicked in. And my survival instincts were terrible. A dangerous idea formed. If Blake liked me, and if he could hear my thoughts, then technically, I could make him suffer. A lot. The realization slowly dawned on Blake's face. No. I smiled. Yes. No. Absolutely yes. Samuel. For the next 10 minutes, I thought about nothing except adopting 12 cats and making Blake help raise them. By cat number 7, he looked exhausted. By cat number 10, he was threatening to end the meeting. By cat number 12, he looked ready to approve any budget request I submitted for the rest of my life. This is abuse. You can hear minds. That's unrelated. It's extremely related. Before he could argue further, someone knocked on the office door. His assistant entered. Director Blake. The board meeting starts in 5 minutes. Blake immediately stood. Good. The assistant looked confused. I looked smug. Blake looked like a man escaping a battlefield. As he passed me, he paused. Samuel. Yes. A small smile appeared on his face. The kind that made my heart skip a beat. No overtime tonight. I blinked. What? Go home. Really? Really? I narrowed my eyes suspiciously. What's the catch? There isn't one. There was definitely a catch. 3 hours later, I discovered it. Because when I arrived home, my phone buzzed. A message from Blake. Attached was a photo. I opened it, then immediately froze. It was an adoption application. For a cat. A very fluffy cat. Underneath was a single text message. Since we're apparently getting 12 of them, we should start with one. I stared at the screen. Then I stared at the message. Then I buried my face in a pillow and screamed. Meanwhile, somewhere across the city, Blake was probably hearing every single second of it and enjoying himself far too much. For the first time since we'd met, Blake couldn't hear a single thing. Because all I could think was, yes. The silence stretched between us. Not awkward. Not uncomfortable. Just full. Then Blake blinked. Once. Twice. A faint crease appeared between his brows. You aren't thinking anything. I grinned. Maybe I'm finally learning. His expression immediately became suspicious. The cat chose that moment to meow loudly. Neither of us looked away. Then Blake cleared his throat. So. Dinner. Tomorrow. I tilted my head. Why tomorrow? His eyebrows rose. You're free tonight? I looked at the mountain of cat supplies. Then at the cat. Then at him. A smile tugged at my lips. I think our daughter needs her parents. Blake froze. The cat sneezed. The CEO of Horizon Corporation looked like he'd just suffered a critical hit. Daughter? She's orange. That's your reasoning? Yes. The tips of his ears turned red again. Amazing. I was never letting him live this down. 2 hours later, we were sitting on the floor of my apartment. The expensive cat tree Blake had assembled stood proudly in the corner. The cat completely ignored it. Instead, she sat inside the cardboard box it came in. We stared at her. She stared at us. Blake finally sighed. That cost $600. The cat yawned. I laughed so hard I nearly fell over. The cat immediately climbed into my lap. Blake's gaze followed her. Then followed me. Then lingered. A dangerous warmth spread through the room. Suddenly aware of it, I looked away first. The cat. apparently deciding she was tired of subtlety, hopped out of my lap and climbed directly into Blake's. His entire expression softened instantly. There it was again. That side of him nobody else ever saw. Not the CEO. Not the workaholic. Just Blake. The man who secretly stocked conference rooms with snacks because employees complained. The man who bought ergonomic chairs after hearing me grumble once. The man who listened to every ridiculous thought in my head and somehow stayed. A terrifying realization hit me. Wait. Blake looked up. What? You've basically been dating me for months. You knew everything I thought. Blake looked remarkably calm. Not everything. Oh, a pause. You think very quickly. I burst out laughing. That's the defense you're going with? He looked almost embarrassed, which was somehow even more shocking than the mind reading. I scooted a little closer. His shoulders immediately tensed. Interesting. Very interesting. Blake. What? Were you ever going to tell me? Silence. The cat purred. Finally, he answered. I tried. When? 6 weeks ago. I blinked. What happened? You spent 40 minutes mentally debating whether penguins had knees. I immediately remembered. Oh. Then you forgot the conversation entirely. Oh. Blake closed his eyes. I started laughing again. The sound echoed through the apartment. For a while, neither of us spoke. The city lights glowed through the windows. The cat slept. And somehow, despite all the ridiculousness that had brought us here, everything felt easy, comfortable, like we'd already spent years together. Then Blake quietly said, There's something else. His tone made me sit up straighter. What? For the first time all evening, he looked uncertain. I don't know why I can hear your thoughts. I blinked. What? I've never been able to hear anyone else's. The room fell silent. The joke drained away. You mean? He nodded. Only yours. My heart skipped. Only mine. Neither of us knew what that meant. Whether it was coincidence, fate, something supernatural, or something else entirely. But as we sat there together on the floor with our sleeping cat between us, neither of us seemed particularly eager to find out. Because for the first time, the mystery wasn't the important part. The important part was that neither of us wanted to leave. Neither of us wanted to leave. And unfortunately, that was exactly when the universe decided we'd gotten too comfortable. The next morning, I walked into Horizon Corporation feeling suspiciously happy, which should have been my first warning sign. My second warning sign came when Emma spotted me. She gasped so loudly 3 departments turned around. You look rested. Oh no. You look moisturized. Emma. You look like someone kissed you. Half the office immediately looked over. I nearly dropped my coffee. We did not kiss. Emma's eyes widened. You mean there was an opportunity and neither of you took it? The disappointment in her voice was genuinely offensive. Before I could defend myself, the elevator doors opened. Blake stepped out. The office instantly became quiet. As usual, the man had the kind of presence that made people unconsciously sit up straighter. He glanced toward me for half a second, then kept walking, professional, cold, composed. Meanwhile, inside my head, wow, that suit is illegal. Blake stumbled, actually stumbled. The entire floor froze. The CEO never stumbled. Ever. Emma slowly turned toward me. I slowly turned away. Oh my God, she whispered. The problem with dating a telepath was that there were no secrets. The problem with dating a telepath who was also your boss was that there were definitely no secrets. By noon, I was losing my mind, because every time Blake walked past, I wonder what he'd look like with his sleeves rolled. A report would suddenly appear in front of my face. Every time, like he was defending himself. By 3 o'clock, I noticed something else. He was avoiding eye contact. Completely, which was strange. Blake Mitchell feared nothing, except apparently my brain. Interesting. Very interesting. A wicked idea formed. At exactly 4 in the afternoon, I walked into his office carrying documents. Blake looked up. I smiled sweetly. His expression immediately became wary. Why are you smiling like that? No reason. Dangerous. Very dangerous. I placed the documents on his desk. Then thought, if we got married, would he take my surname? Blake choked on his coffee. I nearly broke. His glare could have frozen lava. Samuel. Yes, Director Blake? Leave. I just got here. Leave. I was laughing so hard I had to grab the wall for support. That evening, we picked up our cat from the pet daycare we'd impulsively enrolled her in. Apparently responsible pet owners did things like that. Who knew? The shelter had named her Pumpkin. Naturally, neither of us intended to keep that name. She looks like a menace, I said. Pumpkin immediately knocked over a display. Blake nodded. Menace suits her. Chaos. She knocked over another display. Chaos also works. The employee watching us sighed. She's actually banned from the bird observation room. We both stared. There was a bird room? There was. Past tense. The employee looked haunted. By the time we got home, we had accumulated 1 cat, 3 bags of treats, 2 scratching posts, and absolutely no self-control. Pumpkin immediately sprinted through the apartment. A loud crash echoed from the bedroom. I winced. Blake sighed. We followed the sound, only to discover Pumpkin sitting proudly atop a shelf she'd somehow climbed. Beside her sat a framed photo, the only photo in the apartment. A picture of me from a company retreat 3 years ago. Pumpkin gently shoved it. The frame tipped. Blake caught it before it fell. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I noticed something. The frame looked worn. Very worn. As if it had been handled often. I narrowed my eyes. Blake. His posture stiffened. Yes. Why do you have a 3-year-old picture of me in your apartment? Silence. The cat stared. I stared. Blake stared at the wall. A wall had never looked so fascinating. Slowly, very slowly, realization dawned. No. Silence. Blake. Silence. Is this from before you even transferred to Horizon? More silence. My jaw dropped. Oh my God. The great Blake Mitchell looked trapped. Actually trapped. By a cat. And a photograph. And his own terrible choices. Finally, he muttered. It was a good picture. I burst into laughter. The cat meowed. And for the first time in his life, Horizon Corporation's terrifying CEO looked like he wished the ground would swallow him whole. The great Blake Mitchell looked like he wished the ground would swallow him whole. Unfortunately for him, I wasn't about to let this go. You had a picture of me. It was one picture. From 3 years ago. Before you even transferred to Horizon. The silence was deafening. Pumpkin meowed. Traitorously, Blake reached down and picked her up. As if a cat could shield him from this conversation. Could not. I folded my arms. How long? Blake sighed. A little over 3 years. I nearly fell over. 3 years. 3 whole years. This man had somehow managed to be more ridiculous than me. The realization settled over me like a warm blanket. All this time, while I thought I was secretly crushing on my terrifying boss, he'd been carrying around a photograph. For 3 years. I laughed until tears gathered in my eyes. Blake looked resigned. Are you done? Not even close. He groaned. I stepped closer, then closer again, until there was barely any distance between us. For once, my thoughts weren't racing. No teasing. No jokes. No ridiculous fantasies. Just honesty. You know, I said softly. You could have told me. Blake looked down at me. I was waiting for the right time. The right time. You once spent an entire meeting mentally ranking office supplies by attractiveness. I winced. In my defense, the stapler had personality. For a second, he stared. Then he laughed. A real laugh. Warm and unguarded. The kind only I ever got to hear. And suddenly I understood. The reason he listened to all my nonsense. The reason he never got angry. The reason he stayed. It wasn't because he could hear my thoughts. It was because he loved the person having them. The realization hit me so hard my chest ached. Blake's smile slowly faded. His gaze softened. Samuel. Yeah. I love you. Simple. Direct. No grand speech. No dramatic confession. Just the truth. The same truth he'd apparently been carrying around for years. My eyes stung unexpectedly. That's unfair. What is? You stole my line. A small smile returned to his face. Then say it anyway. So I did. I love you too. This time, when he kissed me, there were no interruptions. No meetings. No cats causing disasters. No co-workers eavesdropping. Just us. And for the first time, everything felt complete. 3 years later, Horizon Corporation's annual gala was in full swing. Employees chatted and laughed around the ballroom. Emma stood on stage delivering a toast. And finally, she announced dramatically, "I'd like to thank our CEO and his husband for proving that workplace romance can somehow be both horrifying and adorable." The room erupted into laughter. I nearly buried my face in my hands. Across the table, Blake squeezed my fingers. On the giant screen behind Emma appeared a slideshow. Most of the photos were normal. Wedding pictures, vacation photos, family photos. Then a familiar image appeared. The company retreat picture from 3 years before. The one Blake had secretly kept. The room exploded. The employees lost their minds. Blake closed his eyes in defeat. Emma cackled like a villain. I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe. At our feet, Pumpkin, now an outrageously spoiled cat, stretched lazily and ignored everyone. Blake leaned closer. "You planned this. I have no idea what you're talking about." "You absolutely do." I smiled innocently. His expression said he wasn't fooled for a second. Then suddenly I felt something, a familiar sensation, like a door opening. For years, Blake had been able to hear my thoughts. But in that moment, for the briefest second, I heard his. Just one. Clear as day. Still the most beautiful person in the room. I froze. Blake froze. Our eyes met. Neither of us said a word. Then the connection disappeared. Gone as quickly as it came. But it didn't matter. Because now we both knew. Maybe whatever strange miracle had connected us all those years ago wasn't really about mind reading. Maybe it was just the universe's ridiculous way of introducing two idiots who were always meant to find each other. Pumpkin jumped onto the table and stole a piece of salmon. The spell shattered instantly. "Pumpkin!" I shouted. The cat fled. Employees screamed. Someone dropped a tray. Emma laughed so hard she nearly fell off the stage. Blake sighed. I laughed. And together we chased our disaster of a cat through the ballroom, surrounded by friends, family, and a life neither of us would have traded for anything.